The Heartbleed Vulnerability. What happened? In April 2014, a group of security engineers at Codenomicon, as well as Neil Mata of Google Security, discovered and then reported the Heartbleed bug to a team at OpenSSL. They discovered that there was a vulnerability within OpenSSL, an open source code library that facilitates secure networking between two endpoints that aims to protect against eavesdropping with cryptographic technology. OpenSSL is widely used by different websites, with the majority of them being HTTPS. And according to a study done in 2014 by a company named Netcraft, 66% of websites made use of OpenSSL, meaning this was a very large confidentiality breach. How does it work? When two computers or endpoints attempt to communicate over the internet, they use network protocols to send and receive messages. When connecting to a website, you send requests to a web server that hosts that web page, usually with the Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, or HTTPS. HTTPS messages differ based on if you are the requesting or receiving end of the message. When you want to connect to a website, you send an HTTPS request to the server that contains a command, usually GET or POST, along with information about the sender. Requests/responses are encrypted across networks by the OpenSSL secure socket layer and now transport layer security. In the codebase for OpenSSL, they use requests/responses called heartbeats that are used to keep connections open between the user and server even when the data isn't being shared, usually to make sure that the user computer is not asleep. Looking at the C struct that defines a heartbeat in the OpenSSL library, you can see that it contains the type of message, sending and receiving, the length of the payload or message, the padding that is added, and the message itself. The length of the message is sent with the request so that the computer can distinguish between the message and the padding. This means that even if you know the length of the payload, you might not know how long the entire request or padding is. The job of the service is to copy the payload, request/message, and copy it back with the response and send it back with padding.
The Heartbleed vulnerability can be traced to one line of code. This code, memcopy, copies a block of memory that contains the number of payload bytes from the message received into a new location. The message is then padded with random bytes of data and sent back. This means that data that was unrelated to the request would be added into the message because of the extra memory copied over, so sensitive data could be sent back with responses. Hackers would automate processes to send large payload sizes over and over again until the vulnerability leaked small bits of sensitive information.
Why is this important? The vulnerability was such a big deal because it threatened the confidentiality of users and their data over a network. Since many websites use OpenSSL, this means that a lot of computers and their data were exploited. And important information was stolen from millions of people, including their health and financial data, and many popular online websites were affected by this bug.
How to stay secure. This vulnerability was resolved with an update to the code to make sure that only the correct amount of data for the payload was being sent back to the requester, so that extra information was not being sent back over the network. Make sure that your computer is up to date with the most recent operating system and update and change your password every few months. Generally, this vulnerability is not an immediate threat anymore because of the software upgrades and patches, but it is possible to stumble upon a website that is running older version of SSL. Since the exploitation of this bug does not leave any trace, you will not usually be aware that you've been subjected to this vulnerability, but it is now less likely that you will come across it because of software updates